just be the evolution of the sport. I mean, every now and again you get these coaches that roll through that you just want to go, gosh, just get with the time, guy. If your coach is teaching your 6-year-old a headlock before anything, there's a problem. Look, we're going to take the 1 or the 16. You decide. Welcome to the show. And we're live for episode 5. Got Coach Mark Branch from the University of Wyoming. Coach, how are you?
I'm good. I didn't know I was on lucky number 5, so that's exciting.
Yes, sir. No, we've kind of just got this rolling, and it's been picking up some good traction. We've had guys like Vito on here, and we just had Austin Gomez on, and Jake Elkins from Ironclad, and Boo Dryden from University of Nebraska. So we've had some good guys, and it's picking up some traction. So we definitely.
Sorry, before we get in, I misclicked. Coach, do you still have this video?
What was that?
Can you still see Clayton? I accidentally clicked on
Yep,
one. Okay.
I can still see you.
Okay, sorry. Okay. We can go back and resume. I thought I messed something up there.
No big deal. But yeah, so we've been picking up some good traction, but we definitely appreciate you doing this. It really helps out for sure. So anyways, for you guys listening, I think I'm gonna be quiet for a minute, and I'll let Coach kind of give himself a little bit of an introduction, and kind of tell us where you got your start and how you got to where you are today.
I'm from Newkirk, Oklahoma, so a little town on the Kansas-Oklahoma border, and about 1,500 people probably when I was growing up. So small town there. Grew up wrestling there, and ended up going to Oklahoma State and wrestling there for 5 years, and won 2 NCAA championships there. Was a runner-up twice, and started coaching right after college, and coached there for 11 years before coming to Wyoming in the 2008-2009 season, and been here ever since. And just kind of my passion obviously has been wrestling. I've been doing it since I was 5 years old, so hasn't had that flame hasn't flickered much. It's burned pretty bright and been a big part of my life. So enjoy what I do, and enjoy the sport and everything it has to offer. So glad to be on here.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are always kind of there in the running, and you guys always have a good program, from what I see. And honestly, it seems like the biggest thing that sticks out to me is just the family atmosphere that you guys have going on up there. It seems like your guys are a lot closer than a lot of other teams, I think. And I think you do a real good job, kind of bringing that family bond together. I see a lot of your guys' stuff that you guys go out and do as a team, and that type of stuff. I've seen you guys go out and run mountains and different things like that. And so it's interesting to see that stuff, especially where we're from Kansas. So it's like, hey, we're going to go run a mile, but it's going to be flat the entire time.
Yeah. It's a unique place for sure. And, big reason I chose to come to Wyoming was because of that. And spending 16, 17 years in Stillwater, Oklahoma, that's something that a lot of people talk about with the Oklahoma State family. We're a really tight group, and I stay in touch with all my old, not only teammates, but guys that I coached for years, guys that are still, around the sport. And, we're a really tight knit group. And that's, I think that's the benefit of probably being in a college town, and that was the one familiar thing when I came here and interviewed. It felt like home. It felt like Stillwater in 1992 when I went there. Stillwater's grown quite a bit since then, but Laramie's a little bit smaller, and but it's a college town, and you don't walk in anywhere, whether it's a restaurant or a gas station, and there, it doesn't matter. A stranger's going to say, "How you doing today?" And so that's a big reason why I'm here and why I've been here for as long as I have. And we definitely try to instill that in our team. I think it's important more now than ever for those guys to know that it's not only about wrestling. It's bigger than wrestling, and we care about those guys we care about our student athletes on a different level than just wins and losses, because you're going to have, you stay in this game long enough, you're going to have, hopefully you're going to be able to share in some wins, but you're probably going to have some rough patches. And, those guys need to know that whether or not we're struggling on the mat, we're a family, and we care about them. And there's bigger things down the road than just wins and losses, so we've tried to maintain that here. And I think it's probably the most important part of our job.
Yeah, no, I agree. As a coach, I think the biggest thing is obviously, you want these kids to succeed and do well, but just the mentality, that they get out of it, that's definitely bigger than anything else. But so, do you have struggles at all getting kids to come up there? Has that been a fight for you? Kids going, I don't want to go to Wyoming, or has it been pretty smooth sailing as far as that goes?
No, we've been trying to figure out our niche a little bit, and it has been historically over the time I've been here. It's been a struggle, and I remember in my early years recruiting kids out of Oklahoma, because obviously that was my background, and there were kids that were choosing to stay home and go Division II at, say, University of Central Oklahoma, which they have a great wrestling program, but they were passing on the opportunity to wrestle Division I, and I remember that being hard for me, and a lot of questions were, where is Wyoming? What's in Wyoming? What division are you? And I remember that like being a reality check my first couple of years of talking to a recruit, and they say, what division are you? I'm like, we're Division I. And we've come a long way since then, I think being evolved into the Big 12 6, 7, 8 years ago has helped a lot. And to be honest, COVID helped us a lot. And I tell people all the time, it really was a game changer for us, because we sat around for years saying, man, if we can just get kids here, they'll see, how special the place is, how great our facilities are, how much support we have. But the problem was getting them here. And when a kid only has 5 visits, a lot of times they didn't want to spend one of those 5 visits coming here. And when COVID happened, we were able to actually bring Wyoming to kids' living rooms and get in front of their parents and get in front of their families. And we put together presentations that showed our facilities, that showed our environment, showed the mountains, showed the town of Laramie. And it really is a special town. It's a college town, like I said. It's only about 30,000 people, but it's beautiful here. A lot of people will point to our winters, and we do have some pretty cold winters, but we also have some beautiful winters. We like to go up and snowboard or snow ski. And I was telling a recruit today, I literally just bought a snowmobile this past winter, and so there's fun stuff to do, and growing up in Oklahoma, we'd had our fair stretch of cold weather and ice storms. There wasn't a whole lot of fun things you could do, so there's a trade-off, and to be able to share that with kids a lot easier during COVID, I think opened up a lot of doors for us. And then once some high-level recruits started signing on and coming here, we had the number 9 recruiting class in the country last year. I think a lot of kids were like, wait a minute, what's going on? If those kids are going there, maybe there's something to it. And so, I feel like we've got a lot of momentum going with recruiting, and a lot's changed in the last, 10, 15 years. And a lot of that's been in how we present it, and being able to present it in a different way. But the one thing that we've said is we want to be who we are. We're not trying to be something that we're not. We're not trying to act like we're from, big city, and we don't have big city views here. But that's what we are. And if that's what you want, then you probably shouldn't look at Laramie, but if you want a place where you walk into a restaurant, you walk into a gas station, and they're going to go, hey, I know you, you're a wrestler. I watched you, I came to the duel and watched you. If you want that familiarity every day, every week, then this is a unique place for people, and I think it attracts a lot of student athletes.
Yeah. No, well, and I'm sure, when you kind of get some inner city kids and stuff like that that do commit to come out there, it's definitely going to be a change for them. And I'm sure you've got to have conversation with them about, hey, these are certain things you can and can't do. It's kind of like that. I know they weren't in your program or at your guys' school, but it's like that 3 or 4 wrestlers, that were out in the mountains this last year, and got attacked by a bear, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that there's definitely, conversations that have to happen along the lines, but, I think at this point, everybody pretty much knows that, you guys are a Division 1 high level program, just like everybody else is. And, the things that come with a high level program, you guys have, um,
Yeah, sure. We're the only Division 1 school in the state of Wyoming. So when it comes to resources, when it comes to support, we're not second to anyone, and we're proud of that. And you're like you said, it's kind of surprising some of the kids that were probably came here from. I think of a student athlete that came here from New York. And to this day, probably once a week, he talks how much he misses Wyoming. We've had tons of kids from California. Kyle Pope, Bakersfield, California, he stayed. He graduated, got married, started a family, and stayed here. And I would be surprised if he ever leaves Wyoming. So even some of those kids that came from a little bit different background can find a special love for this place. And maybe it's not for everybody, and we say that too. It's like it's 5 years of your life. When you look back on your college experience, wouldn't it be cool to say, for 5 years, I did something out of the box, and I went somewhere that was not familiar, and I went out there and made memories and found a family, and part of my heart's still there, and you don't have to necessarily live here the rest of your life. But at the same time, we've seen a lot of our kids that have stuck around, and that says something about the program. That says something about the Wyoming community.
Yeah. No, and I think, just across the country in general, you're kind of getting this big push and this big sway of people going, I don't want to be in these big cities anymore, especially after COVID, so that definitely helps you guys out too. Um, so just kind of talking, about the Division 1 lifestyle and the Division 1, programs that you guys have. How into it with kind of this new era. We had Jake Elkins on a couple weeks ago, and he was kind of introducing what Ironclad's been doing with using more technology and things like that in their program as far as their technique goes, and with their nutrition and things like that. I'm sure you guys' programs, probably just about like anywhere else, where it's going to be pretty, highly specific to, certain kids and their body types, and, just what they need to do in particular. So, if you wanted to, tell me a little bit about that or not.
Yeah, one thing that jumps out to me is we built our main athletic facility is the high altitude performance center, and we finished that probably three or 4 years ago. A $50 million facility. There's a couple things that are unique because number one, we're the highest Division 1 school in the entire country at 7,200 feet. So we're in basically the high plains. We're in the mountains. And so with that, you get high altitude training every day. So when they built this facility, a couple of things that they put in were basically kind of altitude chambers. So we actually can go in and train down at sea level. And so we have the advantage of living at high altitude, but we can also train at sea level by going into the altitude chambers. There's only 2 of those in the entire United States, and the other one's at a military base. So if a school's like, we have this, that, and the other, well, they don't have that, and they can't have that because there is uniqueness there. We also, in our strength room, and I've never seen this, and I'm sure there's other weight rooms that have this, but in our weight room, it basically every rack that we have is set up with 2 cameras, and I say cameras, but they're basically the Xbox Connect cameras that basically follow your every motion and every movement, and they not only measure your reps but they measure your output, your speed, your velocity. So we get instant readback on everything. Now, when people come to Wyoming and they see that type of technology and they see that type of investment, as a matter of fact, when Josh Allen was going through his pro day and they had every reporter from, every major sports outlet here, I remember, and I can't tell you the name, but one of the ESPN guys said this facility is as good or better than Alabama's. And so that's part of that, getting that message out to kids to say, we're not lacking in anything. We have everything that the big boys have to offer. And at the same time, we have some unique things that they can offer because of where we're at, so, and like you said that, we go up and we train in the preseason in the mountains. It's something that no other school can do. We utilize that. We're going to continue to utilize those things. And I think that really makes us a unique, special place. But when it comes to resources of nutrition center and strength and conditioning, even in sports medicine, most people have a hot and cold tub. We have hot and cold. I don't even know what you call them. They're literally 30-yard waiting pools. One's hot, one's cold. So our kids get in there. They don't sit around. They can get in there, move around, active recovery. And I think that's probably a lot of people. I don't know if anybody has that. I've never seen them.
Right.
So there's some cool things here that really stand out and make us special. And it's just like I said, just getting that word out to kids that they can come here and be the best. And we haven't had the best recruiting classes historically, but what we've had is a track record of bringing kids in who are unknowns and getting them on the podium at NCAAs and having top 25 teams. And I think the best is yet to come still.
No, I agree, and especially, where you guys can do those things because you have that, those facilities and stuff. I think when that word starts getting out, and hopefully this podcast, gets out there to a lot of kids for you. But I think especially when that stuff starts getting out and people start realizing it more and more year over year, you guys are going to be fighting some of the other big schools for recruits for sure, because when you can specialize like that, just in the, nutrition side and the strength side and the recovery side like that, I think it definitely helps for sure. I mean, I know, that was kind of rolling into my next question on, it's kind of one of those things where as more of this information is getting out just to your general person, you start to see a lot of these younger kids starting to specialize and things like that early, and I know that there's a lot of mixed opinions on that of kids doing that. But, when you go look at some of these kids that are 10, 12, 14 years old that have started to specialize this early and are getting into those types of things where they've working on the nutrition side extremely hard, extremely early, and the recovery side and things like that, you get to see that progression that they have in 2 years. And I mean, I'm all for kids doing multiple other sports, but it seems like wrestling is just one of those ones that, you almost have to do it year round, at least a little bit. And when you see those kids that start specializing, the growth that they have is it's almost undeniable to say that, like, hey, it's not good for them, or whatever. And I understand, what do they call that? The same movement injuries and things like that. But, if they're doing the nutrition, strength and conditioning side, right, and doing it, then I think that's okay. But I was kind of curious as to what your opinion on it was, where, you've getting these younger kids that are specializing this early.
Yeah, you're seeing it a lot more. And I have mixed opinions. I mean, we don't shy away from, a kid that plays multiple sports. That we've definitely had our share of kids that haven't necessarily specialized later. And when you look at that, you're like, man, if they don't, if they start dedicating their full time to wrestling, maybe they can make some exponential jumps. I think that's the case. But at the same time, when you're looking at these kids who are having, the highest levels of success right now, they're kids that are in great clubs across the country. And that's the thing that you didn't have 15, 20 years ago. You didn't have these amazing clubs with high level coaches. Now you have these clubs that have Olympic level coaches, all American level coaches in there every day. They're getting exposure at a time that historically never happened. And that's the biggest thing. And then a lot of that is the regional training centers as well. These kids are able to maybe at the high school level go start training with college kids on a daily basis. So it's, those kids are running the sport right now, and I think the opportunities for those kids that maybe don't specialize early, they're probably a little bit more challenging because the specialist is in the club, the specialist is in the RTC. They're getting exposure that you really can't replicate, and it's hard to even catch up from, to be honest. So, they're still out there. They're still out there, and they'll always be out there. There'll be kids come from nowhere and never been heard of on the national scene that'll still make splashes in college, and that's never going to change. But at the same time, I think it's harder and harder for those because of the opportunities that are out there for the kid that is specializing and the kid that's dedicated to go find the coaching and the competition in the practice room.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think that's not only, in wrestling. I mean, you get to get online and see these videos of these young kids, like in baseball and stuff like that. I've been watching here lately some of these training centers for pitchers, younger kids that are coming in and pitching. And, growing up, you're always told, hey, your kids shouldn't be throwing curveballs and sliders and this and that, at a young age because it's bad for them. And man, they got these young kids in here, throwing 74-mile-an-hour curveballs, and I'm going, holy cow, dude, I'm 26 years old and I can't do that, and so I think it's just kind of one of those things is as technology and as we kind of start, evolving a little bit more in sports, I think you're going to see more and more of that, and I say I'm the same with you. I've got mixed opinions on it because I grew up, you did everything, until I was in high school, it was, we're playing football in the fall, we're wrestling through the winter, playing baseball through the spring and summer, and then wrestling, a little bit through the summer. But it was never, we're only wrestling all year round from the time we're, 9, 10 years old. And you're seeing, kind of a lot of that. And then, your, new NIL stuff and things like that coming in, I think that definitely makes a huge impact. And we've talked about it multiple times on this show, with other people, and we've gotten some definitely huge, one side and the other, one side of the aisle and the other opinions on it. And so it'll be kind of weird to see where it goes from here, but as of now, what's your stance on the new NIL contracts and things like that are coming in for kids? Good for the sport, bad for the sport?
I think there's some great opportunities for the kids. I think I absolutely 100% think it's bad for the sport. I think it's going to hurt wrestling. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that are short-sighted and they don't see the negative effects it can have on the sport in general. For us to thrive as a sport, I don't know. I think we're in the low 80s right now, which is actually okay. We've been building a little bit slowly, our numbers at the Division I level. And, and that is the metric that you want to look at. I mean, a lot of times people talk about the Division III level. Obviously women's wrestling is growing and that's awesome. But what we're talking about is, when you talk about the Division I level, you talk about the schools that are putting the resources and the financial backing to wrestling. I know there's a lot of programs out there that are even roster based. Like you have to have a minimum of 40 kids on your roster. They don't have scholarships, so they're literally funding the program with enrollment. And that's not, that's great, but it's not great. It's not helping the sport grow. So when you look at the Division I level at the schools that are financially backing wrestling, we got to keep that healthy. And the bottom line is this, not only the portal, but especially the NIL stuff that's happening is not going to be healthy for the sport. And I can tell you this, if in the next 10 or 15 years, if we if we lose 10 or 15 programs, we're in trouble. And if smaller programs keep getting picked off by money, and that's, let's not kid ourselves, that's what it's about. If these programs with unlimited resources are going and plucking these kids out of the smaller programs, we're going to lose 15, 20 programs. And then, you look at, I said, I'm watching the women's gymnastics right now, the NCAA, but, look at men's gymnastics. How many programs are even left? We don't want wrestling to go there. And we've been in a battle for 20, 30 years to keep wrestling relevant and help it grow and a lot of times help it survive. And let's not kid ourselves. There's been times when it wasn't, it didn't look good. And I think we're in a healthy time right now, but if we're not careful and we hurt ourselves, everybody's going to pay. And everybody's going to look back and go, man, we made some big mistakes. And I think the possibilities there that's what's happening right now. I don't think it's healthy for the sport. I also don't think it's healthy for the kids. These kids are getting pulled in the wrong direction a lot of times. And I say the wrong direction because I want them to have the chance to make money. If kids can sell t-shirts, if kids can work camps, be clinicians at camps, if kids can do a local radio ad or a local TV or something to help them, I mean, I think that is fantastic. But if we're talking about one school going off and putting together a package to take a kid from another school, that's not the intention of this. And it's not fair for the kids to be pulled from, man, this is the school I signed up. These are the coaches I have relationships with. These are the coaches that have helped develop me. And now I got to face, do I be loyal or do I take the money? And that's unfair for those kids to have to face that at such a young age. And then, the bigger picture about the portal is now it's just so easy to say, if I have any kind of a struggle, then the easiest thing is just to move on. And we all know that that's not how life works. When you're an adult, you're going to have struggles and you can't just move on every time. You got to dig your heels in. You got to fight. You got to figure it out. And I think we're teaching these young men some pretty bad life lessons. And I see it happening, and I'm nervous about what it's doing because, to be honest, probably most of us wrestling coaches aren't in it for the fame, the fortune. We're in it to help these young men become amazing young men, amazing citizens, and be successful as adults. And so I'm like, what kind of message is out there that we're now having to battle to say, hey, I know it's tough. Let's figure it out together. Let's find a solution. Let's fight through it and let's win. And let's battle our demons. Let's battle our obstacles, and let's come out on the other side victorious, because we all had to do it. I promise you, I had to fight so many battles, going through college. But then I learned after college that those battles helped me prepare for life, because the battles in life are a lot harder. One of my least favorite quotes, and people get on to me for this, but one of the most famous wrestling quotes is Dan Gable's quote, "After wrestling, everything in life is easy." And I say that's baloney. Right now, no offense to Dan Gable, but wrestling is not as hard as life. Wrestling does prepare you for life. And sometimes we look at wrestling like, man, it's so tough. And it is tough physically. And it's tough mentally and emotionally, but it doesn't compare to the things that we have to face as adults in life. So if we're not preparing kids to battle those fights, to be able to face those battles, then I'm a little bit nervous about what we're doing with our young men and women. I'm sure it's happening in the female wrestling world as well. So it scares me, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a lot of people, that talk about this new generation of kid, and they want to complain all the time, about, oh, they're lazy, oh, this, that, whatever, but bringing this new stuff into them, that's not helping the situation out at all. If that's what you think, throwing $250,000 NIL deal at them, that's not going to help them, learn, like you're saying, the life lessons that they need to learn to stay where they're at. And I actually just watched an interview with the coach from Texas football team here the other day, and their stance on it I like a lot. Where he said, their kids, the minute that you enter the transfer portal, you're done. You can go, and we're gonna have conversations and stuff like that before that point, but you got to understand the minute that you hit the transfer portal, there's no coming back. So if you don't get picked up somewhere or whatever, that's on you. So I think if more coaches kind of took that stance, then it may help with it. But I also agree. I think that just because there's an issue with your coach or you've got something going on, that doesn't mean, hey, we're gonna leave just right now and go look at money and things like that. But
yeah, and I mean, these kids are going to find out that the grass may not be greener on the other side. I mean, they're going to find it out the hard way. And I think a lot of kids are going to make bad decisions. I think they already have. I think a lot of kids have made bad decisions, poor decisions. And yeah, I mean, you can't come back. You can't change it. You just have to learn from it. They're going to learn hard lessons. I think that's inevitable, but I don't wish that for them, but it's created that. This has all been created, by the NCAA and the decisions that have been made. And I understand why some of these decisions were made, but should have probably been, should have maybe eased our way into it and figured it out a little bit better before we just kind of opened the gates and turned everything loose.
Right. So, kind of transitioning to something else here, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. With the growing of girls, college wrestling and they're, moving into, an Olympic style in college. Do you ever see the men's doing that? I've talked about it, multiple times in the past, as far as looking at, kind of the world stage, and you get a lot of these guys, that are now going, we just had Austin Gomez on, and he's wrestling for Team Mexico, so you're getting a lot of these guys going to other countries to wrestle on the world team and stuff like that. Do you ever see NCAA's going to freestyle and doing that?
I don't now. I to be honest, I mean, 15, 20 years down the road, if it happened, I wouldn't be completely shocked, but I honestly don't. Number one, it's what makes us unique as a country. I mean, it was, folk style wrestling was founded, and obviously I came from Oklahoma State, and a lot of that happened with some of the early guys, Cliff Keen and Ed Gallagher, bringing the sport to a place where it was at one time one of the most popular sports in the country. And I don't see that changing a lot. Now, the other thing, and as I was kind of fighting through this a few years ago when I was on the rules committee, I was the chair of the NCAA rules committee, and a lot of people wanted us to move closer to freestyle and go to a true step out. And to be honest, like I know there's a lot of controversy in the out of bounds rules in college. I was a part of that. We talked in detail about a lot of that, and I had kind of a long time coach, Jim Gibbons, the Iowa State head coach and NCAA champion for Iowa State. He's a good friend of mine. I think it was him that sent me a message and said, if we go to freestyle wrestling, we will kill high school wrestling in America. And so we started this dialogue, and he basically said that the day that we switch to freestyle, every college coach is going to start coaching or start recruiting overseas, and it will kill our high school programs, and they won't be able to make the transition fast enough. They'll just get lost in the shuffle, and it will crush high school wrestling.
Yeah, I've always wondered that.
Never thought of it, until then, I'd never really thought about that angle, but I thought, man, as a college coach, absolutely. If we switch to freestyle rules today, I would do just like our tennis coach here at Wyoming. Where probably 90% of his roster is foreign. Golf, I mean, you look at a lot of different sports where they recruit overseas quite a bit. We would do it in a heartbeat. And what's going to happen to high school wrestling, So to me, I don't want it to go there. I think there's something special and unique. And I think when David Taylor cradles up a Russian, that's pretty cool, right? You know, we've been getting our guys ready for UWW juniors, and you know, I practice on Monday. I walked through and I said, everybody's defending a gut, they're defending a leg lace. You know, they're not defending a butcher, they're not defending a tilt, they're not defending legs. You know, let's think outside the box and look around at some of our best wrestlers on the senior level. Kyle Dake and David Taylor. I mean, those guys are making folk style things work for them. And I think it does set us apart. I think that's a lot of our success that we've had the last 5 years internationally is because of our folk style background. So to be honest, I'm a folk style guy too. So I know I'm biased. I know I am, but at the same time, I look at those points and I like where we're at in folk style. I think we can continue to compete on the international level with everybody in the world. So if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I had kind of thought about that, you know, that angle where people would go and, you know, recruit overseas. And I'm not that I'm surprised that it hasn't happened more, you know. I mean, I can tell you, and this is a conversation for another episode, but the guys from Dagestan, you know, and stuff like that are in the UFC, I cannot stand those guys. It enrages me, you know, and with guys like DC that are bringing them in, you know, I'm going, at one time in this country, you know, it was like, I don't care what my feelings are on this, you know, United States fighter, but if we're fighting somebody from Russia, Dagestan like that, you better win, you know. And now it's like we're welcoming them with open arms and everything, and it gets me irate. But, you know, like I say, with guys like that are, you know, they're wrestlers. There's no doubt about it. They are extremely good, and I think a lot of that has to do with state-sponsored stuff. But, you know, I'm surprised that it hasn't happened more where people aren't recruiting from overseas and things like that. So, you know, kind of with that being said, we'll wrap up episode 5. Coach, we really appreciate you coming on. I'm glad that, you know, we could get you here, and it was really good talking to you, and we'll for sure be having you on again. But with that being said, episode 5, that's a wrap. Thanks, guys. Just be the evolution of the sport. I mean, every now and again, you get these coaches that roll through that you just want to go, gosh, just get with the time, guy. If your coach is teaching your 6-year-old a headlock before anything, there's a problem. Look, we're going to take the 1 or the 16. You decide. Welcome to the show.